Julian had an accident and lost his memory, his mind stuck at his most rebellious age of 19. When I went to see him, he treated me like a complete stranger, his gaze cold and distant. Wife, what kind of joke is this? There's no way I'd get married. Seeing how resistant he was, I had no choice but to leave for the time being. But ever since that one meeting with him, he has been appearing before me 800 times a day, with different excuses claiming they're all coincidental encounters. Another month passed, and he took my contact information to show off to his friends. They immediately lost it. Dude, seriously, you worked for a whole month just to get your own wife's phone number. Julian got into a car accident, and I booked the earliest flight back. When I went to the hospital to see him, he had just fallen asleep. The doctor said Julian was fine, just a mild concussion, and due to the impact, he was experiencing temporary amnesia. As for how long temporary would last, it could be a month, a year, or 2, or even longer. His memory now stops at age 19, the time when he was at his worst. His friends mentioned that Julian doesn't remember our marriage right now, and it might take some time for him to accept it. I was mentally prepared. After all, he hadn't exactly been thrilled when he first learned he was marrying me either. Though not as openly resistant as now, he had been utterly cold back then. Now, with his mental age stuck at 19, accepting the existence of a wife was understandably tough. I took a deep breath. Then I'll come see him tomorrow. Call me when he wakes up. All right, Chloe. The next day, before Chris and the others could call, the hospital rang first. Miss Miller, can you reach your husband? We've searched the entire hospital, but can't find him. The hallway cameras didn't catch him either. It seems he climbed out through the window. My breath caught. It was hard to imagine 19-year-old Julian would do something so absurd. During these years of our marriage, he had always maintained a composed and restrained demeanor. I occasionally heard that he was like 2 different people at 19 and 29, but I never imagined it would be like this. After leaving the company, I called Chris and learned that Julian had gone straight from the hospital to a private club to meet them. When I arrived at the private room, Chris and the others were being dragged into drinking by Julian. Julian, I really can't drink anymore. Same here, man. I quit drinking years ago. Julian, you should stop drinking too. Chloe is going to come after us later. Yeah, it's been a whole day. Chloe must be worried by now. Julian raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Chloe, this Chloe, that just looking for an excuse to bail again, huh? Chris was on the verge of tears. Do you really not remember you have a wife? Stop messing with me. Only a fool would get married. Why would I ever sacrifice my freedom like that? And those henpecked husbands, total losers. Julian's memory still painted Chris as that rich kid who'd take advantage of his amnesia to mess with him. Of course, he didn't believe he'd ever get married. The sound of me opening the door was drowned out by the blaring background music. Chris was the first to spot me standing at the door. A chill ran down his spine, as if facing a formidable enemy. Julian, you'd better shut up. At that moment, I walked into the private room and picked up the liquor bottle on the table. Everyone except Julian sat up straight. Julian leaned back against the sofa and looked up with displeasure. Don't the waiters here know how to knock before entering? The trailing note abruptly cut off the moment he saw me. After locking eyes with me, Julian began fumbling nervously with his tie and shirt. First buttoning up the top 2 buttons, then thinking better of it and undoing them again. He even tugged his collar down slightly, revealing just a glimpse of well-defined pectoral muscles. 19-year-old Julian was quite the actor. Chris and the others couldn't bear to watch him dig his own grave any longer and were about to warn him when I stopped them with a look. As I left, I could hear the entire group in the private room collectively exhale in relief. Julian, why is your face so red? Julian found the question absurd, me blushing impossible. The ever-oblivious Leo immediately flipped open his phone's front camera. It really is red though, unless you knew she was. Ahem. Chris abruptly cut him off. They feared offending me more than Julian. There must be something wrong with this wine. Have someone check it. Julian picked up his glass, then slammed it down again. No more drinking. I'm going home. To the home Julian mentioned certainly wasn't the one he and I currently lived in. He returned to the Pierce family's old house, and since he couldn't open the door no matter what, he climbed over the fence again. He was almost mistaken for a burglar. Fortunately, the bodyguard had good eyesight, so he emerged unscathed, though he did wake up the 2 elderly folks past their 50s. You little rascal, what are you doing here in the dead of night, trying to dig up some treasure? Old Pierce, you've got it wrong. Our son should be in the hospital. He had a car accident and lost his memory. He probably doesn't even remember his own home now. Oh, now that you mention it, I remember, you little brat. How dare you forget? Even Chloe getting bold, aren't you? Mr. Pierce casually grabbed the nearby broom and was about to whack his backside. Perhaps the 29-year-old Julian wouldn't dodge, but the 19-year-old Julian knew exactly how to avoid his father's wrath. He quickly slipped upstairs to his room and slammed the door shut. What's this nonsense about? Chloe, are you arranging another marriage for me? At 19 you tried to sell me off to some rich girl, have you forgotten? And now at 29 you're still pulling the same tricks. Mr. Pierce shouted furiously in the stairwell. Ungrateful, irresponsible brat. I'd be thrilled if you stopped wasting Chloe's time. Julian sneered. Fine. That same night my best friend Sophia came over to stay with me and vented on my behalf. Why don't you just confront him directly? I think that jerk might be faking his amnesia. How about we go to Pierce's house right now, bag him, and give him a good beating? Of course I'm angry. My perfectly good husband stayed out all night, insists he is definitely single, and acts like marrying me was some unbearable hardship. But then again, what if Julian never remembers? Are you two just going to stay like this forever? If he really can't remember, then we'll bag him and lock him up at home. 3 the next day, there weren't any urgent matters at work, so I agreed to accompany Sophia to check out her newly opened bakery and help brainstorm ideas. Just as we arrived at the bakery, Julian's mother called. Chloe, there's something I feel I must tell you. This morning I saw Julian dressed unusually flashy with hair gel and cologne on when he left. I'm afraid he might be. The door creaked as Julian walked in from the bakery entrance. It was the first day of business, and though the shop was crowded, I spotted Julian immediately. There was no particular reason. His outfit was just too eye-catching. He wore wide-leg jeans with 4 or 5 pockets, a loose black t-shirt, and a silver metal chain around his neck. He looked like he'd stepped straight out of a 90s music video. I replied to the other end of the phone, "It's fine, Mom, I know what I'm doing." He may have lost his memory and forgotten this grudge, but I still remember it clearly. Carrying a tray of bread samples, I deliberately walked past Julian and offered them to the customers around him. Just as Julian, who was closest to me, finally reached out to take a toothpick from the tray, Sophia casually picked up the last piece. "It's delicious, munch, munch, munch," as expected of something I made myself. She looked at Julian in surprise and said, "Oh, I didn't know you wanted to try it too." So I snatched it away. "How about this? We have some new products here that you can buy and try at home." Julian's mouth twitched. Sophia continued, "Could it be that you came here specifically to mooch free samples?" And so Julian immediately signed up for a 3,000 membership card, bought 5 pineapple buns, and left with a dark expression on his face. Sophia shook her first order of the day. "Thanks, sis. Consider this my grand opening." Red envelope. Julian sat in the private booth staring gloomily at the 5 pineapple buns in his hands. "ISNT, this the new bakery Sophia just opened." Chris had barely taken a bite of his pineapple bun when Julian pulled him down onto the sofa to interrogate him. "How do I look in this outfit today?" Chris said sincerely. "It really captures your 19-year-old style." Julian frowned. "Am I old now?" Leo's eyes were full of admiration. "No way out of all of us, you're the one who knows best how to stay in shape. Dude, you're seriously handsome." "I'm 29 now, which rounds up to 30. A 30-year-old man isn't worth much anymore." "Wait, no, she doesn't even know how old I am, does she?" Hearing these words, the pineapple bun slipped from Chris's hand. "Her Julian, don't tell me this refers to a woman." Julian responded nonchalantly, quite the master of playing hard to get. "Holy shit, someone tell Chloe Julian's fallen in love at first sight with someone else." I know, I'm texting her right now." "What does she look like?" "Dude, you can't just go for anyone." "I saw her in the private room yesterday too, and I didn't fall in love at first sight. There's no way I'd get married, but someone as pretty as her I've genuinely never seen before. Her face is so small it looks smaller than my hand, and she's so gentle." Kevin, who was still typing a message, froze mid-text and looked up at Julian in disbelief, then quickly deleted everything in the chat box. "The one who came to the private room yesterday, that's her crisis averted." Chris and Leo exchanged glances before asking Julian, "So, do you know her name?" Julian shook his head. After much eyebrow waggling between Chris and the others, they finally sent the unluckiest Leo forward. Leo's face was practically splitting with a grin. "Yeah, her name is Chloe Miller. We know Sophia, the owner of this bakery. Chloe as her best friend." Julian let out a soft ah of realization. "So that's how it is. This bread is quite delicious. I'll bring some for you all these days." Julian left humming a tune, leaving the others exchanging glances. "Do you think when Julian regains his memory, he'll throw us all into the river to feed the fish?" "Don't worry, it was Chloe who told us not to say anything, with Chloe protecting us." Julian won't do anything to us. That makes sense. The next day, Julian not only came to the bakery himself, but also brought Chris and the others along. Each of them purchased a 3,000 prepaid card, becoming the bakery's VIP customers. Sophia couldn't stop grinning. I wondered who it was. Turns out it's our sugar daddy. "Come sit over here, sugar daddy." But Julian seemed distracted, constantly glancing toward the bakery's kitchen. Not seeing the person he wanted to see, he lowered his eyes again, somewhat disappointed. "Aren't you acquainted with the boss?" Julian's question made Leo, who was still munching on his bread, suddenly look up with clear, innocent eyes. "Haven't you two seen each other in so long? Don't you need to catch up?" Chris burst out laughing and quickly pushed Leo to get up, scratching his head. Leo stood up from his seat with only half an understanding and went to look for Sophia. Chris and the others mouthed from behind, "Ask someone." Leo nodded. "Why haven't I seen Chloe today?" "She's not here today. She went to work." Leo nodded again, then turned to look at Julian. "Oh, Julian, Chloe isn't here today." "Julian, I wasn't asking about her." As soon as the words left his mouth, he got up and left. Sophia was speechless. Seriously, how did he ever manage to win Chloe over back then? Everyone shook their heads in unison. "No idea." 6 For several days after that, Julian passed by my company building every single day. Morning jog, passing by without intention. When he saw me, he abruptly looked away, pretending not to know me. Evening jog, he still passed by the front of the company building. When he saw me, he greeted me and said, "What a coincidence. These days are Seattle's rainy season, and the weather isn't that great, windy and rainy." I thought Julian would give up eventually. Who knew that on that rainy day, he'd go running in a raincoat? Don't ask, just call it passion for sports. And so it went for several days without me initiating conversation. Inside the familiar private club, Julian sat with Chris. The table no longer held empty liquor bottles. Instead, there were bags of bread. Chris took a bite and chewed a couple of times. "Today, new Napoleon pastry is pretty good." Yeah, last time you said the scraps Sophia gave you were delicious too." I called it being easy to please Julian. "Do you want a piece to Napoleon? It's tasty." Julian wasn't in the mood. Chris found it odd these past few days. Julian kept calling them into the private room, but never said anything, though anyone could see he was depressed. "I think there is something off about you lately, Julian." Chris ventured to guess. "Could it be because of Chloe?" Julian didn't answer directly. Unwrapping a bread roll, he casually asked, "Since you know Sophia, you must know a bit about Chloe too." "It's all right." Leo glanced at Julian. "Just so we're more familiar with her husband." Julian was shocked. "She's married." Chris chewed on his bread. "Yeah, and soon to be her ex-husband." Julian looked as if the sky had fallen in just 1 minute. He had convinced himself. People who don't love each other shouldn't be tied together. It's reasonable. I support her divorce. Kevin took a bite of the cream puff and started muttering. Chloe likes handsome guys who don't smoke or drink, preferably mature and steady ones. Exactly, they were getting more and more excited while Julian grew increasingly annoyed. I didn't even ask you guys. They exchanged glances, truly unable to fathom how they had managed to tolerate being friends with Julian back when they were 19. 7 after the lunch break, my assistant told me she'd spotted Julian downstairs. Nobody at the company knew about Julian's amnesia. They all thought we had a fight. When I went downstairs, I saw Julian pacing back and forth at the company entrance pretending to just be passing by. Heard you were looking for me. I walked up to him, the wind just right to lift my long hair, the hem of my skirt swaying perfectly. The tips of Julian's ears turned red involuntarily. He averted his eyes. No, I wasn't. Julian didn't even notice he'd been walking with his arms and legs moving in sync. I smiled and said, oh, I work here, and you just happened to come here for a walk. What a coincidence. The tips of his ears turned even redder. 29-year-old Julian used to say anything without hesitation. Who knew I'd get to see the day he'd blush in embarrassment. Me showing up here it caused trouble for you. Everyone at the company saw us. Why would it be trouble? They all know you. A leaf landed on Julian's shoulder. I reached up to brush it off. Julian kept his head down like a shy teenage boy, stubbornly saying this isn't right between us. Yet despite his words, he didn't retreat a single step from my touch. What's not right about it? I leaned closer, my breath grazing his earlobe. Didn't you want to pursue me? Julian stiffened and staggered back a step. Do you already know? I brushed my hair aside. Yes, you want to pursue me, but you should give me some time to think about it, right? Julian clenched his fist. All right, I first met Julian when he was 27, the CEO of a listed company, young, accomplished, mature, and steady. We were introduced by a mutual acquaintance. Before that, I had seen him once when he was arguing with Mr. and Mrs. Pierce over a blind date. He didn't want to get married, while Mr. Pierce believed that at 27, if he didn't marry soon, he wouldn't be able to find a wife. He even mentioned how he and Julian's mother had married right after graduating from university, unlike Julian, who couldn't find anyone. That day was the first time I saw the usually composed and aloof Julian lose his composure like that. Unable to resist his family's pressure, he finally agreed to meet me once. His attitude remained cold and indifferent, yet the very next day Mr. Pierce came to finalize the marriage arrangements. After marrying Julian, he rarely showed his emotions on his face. Except for when we were in bed, we always treated each other with formal respect. But that wasn't necessarily a problem. Where affection was lacking, it could be cultivated over time. Dating 19-year-old Julian perfectly made up for the regret of not having properly courted during our whirlwind marriage. The ambiguous phase, always the most heart-fluttering. Julian, what good fortune did you encounter today? You're glowing with joy, even treating us to a meal. Julian inadvertently revealed his phone screen displaying my profile picture. I got her contact info. Chris took one look and nearly fainted. Buddy, haha, congratulations. At this moment, 2 messages popped up on the phone screen. Julian curled his lips and stood up. I have something else to attend to. The bill as already settled. Enjoy your meal. Inside the private room, seriously, he has been absent-minded these past few days, leaving early and returning late, all just to get contact details for his legally wedded wife. Julian had been dropping by the company to see me these past few days, whether he had business or not, asking me out for meals, inquiring if I had plans after work. But 19-year-old Julian's understanding of romance was still stuck at the level of eating meals and watching movies. As for anything beyond that, he was completely clueless. When I subtly brushed the back of his hand during the movie, he immediately shoved his hands into his pockets. When picking me up from work, I asked him to fasten my seatbelt. His body went rigid as a board, carefully avoiding any contact with me the entire time. This couldn't go on any longer. Julian, do you know that I have a husband? Julian lowered his head, the corners of his eyes red, his voice humble. Can you stop toying with me? I grasped his hand. Actually, before I could finish, Julian's phone rang. It was Julian's cousin who had just started college. Bro, you said last time you'd bring your wife to visit me. When are you coming? I've been waiting for ages. Julian's facial muscles stiffen. Wife. Yeah, what's wrong, bro? I heard you were in a car accident. Don't tell me you really did hit your head too hard. What's wrong with you? I know people said you and your wife didn't get along well, but forgetting your own marriage, that's too much. Before this moment, Julian had never seriously doubted whether he actually had a wife. His entire worldview collapsed in an instant. Julian abruptly released my hand. I'm sorry. Before I could explain the truth, Julian disappeared and never showed his face to me again. I sent him messages, but he didn't reply to any of them. Could the blow really have been that hard on him? Just as I was wondering, Julian's mother called me. Chloe, I don't know what has gotten into Julian. He has been holed up at home every day, refusing to come out for several nights. Now I've heard him wailing like a lovesick ghost. I told him to go see you, but he went. I'm afraid he might do something drastic, but also afraid he might suddenly get over it. Would you come see him? I thought of his reddened eyes when he left that day and suddenly understood. He must have genuinely believed he was the one who cheated. Mom, could you please tell him for me? Just say I agree to divorce him. If he comes to tell me in person, I'll agree. Mrs. Pierce was shocked. How can this be? Although Julian has always been the one holding you back, now that he has lost his memory and is bullying you, are you just going to let him off like this? Some things are better if I tell him myself. Hearing it from others and hearing it from me directly are ultimately two different things. Don't worry, Mom, we went to get divorced. Calculating the time I'd agreed to meet Julian, I went home and took a shower. When he knocked, I had just stepped out of the shower wearing a nightgown with my hair still damp against my shoulders. The doorbell rang several times before I answered. The moment the door opened, he froze. He glanced at me, then at the door number. When he realized I wasn't even wearing underwear, his face instantly burned bright red. With a bang, he slammed the door shut. I grabbed a towel to dry my hair, then opened the door again. Julian didn't he want a divorce? Come in and talk. 11 Clearly 19-year-old Julian didn't he have great emotional resilience. His hands trembled as he pulled out the chair, glancing at me repeatedly throughout. I took the drafted divorce agreement from his palm, my fingertips still damp with moisture brushing against his hand in the process. Julian clenched his fist, slightly visibly unsettled and unsure how to react. I placed the divorce papers on the table and said to him seriously, "Julian, I'm Chloe, your legally recognized wife. So that time in the private room, you were looking for me." Resting my chin on my hand, my half-dried hair naturally cascaded over my shoulders. "Yes, but you didn't recognize me." "Why didn't you tell me?" I shrugged. "You don't remember me. Do you want a divorce? Should I have announced right then that I'm your wife only for you to divorce me in front of all those people?" Julian lowered his head, his voice softening. "If you'd said you were, I wouldn't have." Wouldn't he have what? Never mind, I knew exactly what he meant. But in the end, I was the one who handled it poorly. I cupped his face in my hands and kissed him, watching his eyes widen in shock. "Don't be mad anymore, okay?" I moved the divorce papers aside. "Anyway, we're still married for now. Could you help me dry my hair?" Julian made a sound in his throat. I sat on the chair and handed him the hairdryer. He took the hairdryer with awkward movements, set it to medium heat, lowest fan speed. Julian didn't speak, but his hands obediently followed instructions. But after all, Julian had lost his memory and wasn't he as skilled at blow drying as before, frequently scalding my ears. "Ouch, what's wrong?" Julian turned off the hairdryer and leaned closer to hear me better. The next moment, I slightly turned my head and my lips accidentally brushed against the corner of his mouth. Julian froze completely. In the past, he would have kissed me without hesitation, not caring whether my hair was dry or not, and carried me straight to bed for some passionate fun. Now he actually has self-control, and he even has the audacity to look like the victim of my advances. "It's fine," he muttered to himself, taking a slight step back before turning the hairdryer on again. Who knows who that remark was meant for? As soon as the hairdryer started, the surrounding noise became loud and chaotic again. The hair dried faster than expected. All done. Julian finished speaking and fled in a panic. Julian went to confront his group of friends. "You all knew Chloe is my wife." He put away his usual carefree demeanor, his expression cold as tempered ice. He was genuinely angry. For a moment, Leo and the others thought Julian had regained his memories. Leo and the group were at a loss. After all, whenever Julian came to them like this, it usually meant he argued with Chloe, but couldn't he bring himself to say harsh words to her? And so those harsh words ended up being evenly distributed among each of them. Kevin couldn't stand it anymore. "Julian, we've reminded you many times, but you just wouldn't listen." Chloe said she could set you free. "If you really don't remember her, then just get divorced, if that's what you want." "What do you mean just get divorced? Can you guys put in a good word for me?" Julian rested his forehead in his hands, his voice trembling with tears. Chris racked his brains trying to come up with some comforting words. "Look on the bright side, starting over from scratch might not be such a bad thing, right?" The towering 9-meter tall kettle in front of them let out a deafening roar. "Wait, Chloe just told us you went to see her to sign the divorce papers. So now you too." Julian thought of the document left forgotten on the table. His mind had been so preoccupied with all that mess earlier that he'd forgotten to take it with him when he left. He abruptly stood up from the couch and pushed the door open to leave. Chris watched Julian's hurried departure and sighed in relief. "It seems Chloe has saved our lives once again." 13 It was raining heavily outside when the doorbell rang. I went to open the door and found Julian standing there completely drenched. Frowning, I handed him a coat. "Why are you back? Did you come for the divorce papers?" "I just had to deal with some urgent company matters, so I haven't signed the agreement yet." "Why don't you go take a shower first? I'll go sign it now and give it to you when it's done." Julian went straight for the agreement, and before I could react, the divorce papers were already soaked by the water droplets on him. "Oops, my bad," he said, glancing at me with extreme guilt. "Let us talk about the divorce later." Whereas the bathroom. As he left, Julian made sure to toss the stack of documents into the trash bin first. Julian came out while I was lying in bed, playing with my phone. A wave of steam from the bathroom hit me along with the familiar scent of my usual body wash. I looked up at him. Water droplets trailed down the lines of his abs before disappearing into the towel. Julian's voice sounded a little hoarse. "I'm wearing my clothes." "You usually don't wear clothes after showering." Julian's face instantly flushed red. "I almost forgot you lost your memory. Let me get you a t-shirt." Julian nodded, much obliged, still oddly polite. Julian changed clothes and headed out of the room again. I called after him. "Are you going back to your parents' place?" "I'll go find a room. The other rooms haven't been cleaned, yet they're not livable." "Don't worry, I won't do anything to you." Then I felt like saying it that way made it seem like I originally wanted to do something. So I added, "It's not like I'm not picky. The current Julian has neither the skills of a 29-year-old nor the energy of a 19-year-old. Thinking about it this way, I really got the short end of the stick. I turned off the light. "Let us sleep." I was lying with my back to Julian. Not long after the lights went out, I felt a pair of arms wrap around my waist. Then I felt something poking uncomfortably against my back. I turned to face Julian and sighed helplessly. "Honey, I can't sleep like this." "That's not fair." Julian lifted his beautiful eyes and gazed at me quietly. I chuckled. "How is it unfair?" Before the last syllable faded, Julian suddenly kissed me. My breath caught abruptly. His voice was low and hoarse, tinged with a hint of grievance. "You lied to me." Within seconds, several large teardrops fell one by one onto my shoulder. I couldn't bear it. "Then, what will it take for you to calm down?" Julian said nothing, kissing me again, this time with no gentleness at all. It was venting aggressive, leaving marks all over, whether it was 19-year-old Julian or 29-year-old Julian. In some matters it's always the same. As long as I'm not exhausted, he never stops. Though his memory was gone, his muscle memory remained in the end. He carried me to the bath like an MVP who just won a championship. Now we're even too drained to argue. I could only murmur weakly, you really hold grudges. 14 the next day, ever since Julian dropped me off at work, he bombarded me with hundreds of messages daily. For instance, his daily workout photos or the blooming cactus he kept in his office. During this period, he recalled many things and returned to the company to handle the piled up documents. But for some reason his memories of me remained completely blank. That day he came to pick me up from work on time to try the newly opened Japanese restaurant. He seemed preoccupied the whole way, always avoiding my gaze. It felt awkward. Something was off. Julian, what's wrong? Nothing. We've slept together every night for 2 years. Do you really think I wouldn't notice when something is bothering you? I asked Chris and the others about our past today. Julian slammed the steering wheel hard. So my 20 self was such an asshole. 15 The outside world all says Julian and I have marital discord. Most media shots of us show each doing our own separate things. Sometimes our two companies even clash over business conflicts, neither willing to yield an inch. Work is work and family is family. Julian has been collecting numerous photos and videos of us attending various banquets together during this period. They all appear to be pictures of mutual respect, exactly what you'd expect from a marriage of convenience. Some even say we only rushed into marriage to appease our families. These claims were corroborated by Chris and the others. Back when we got married, there truly was no love between us. Only later Julian gradually started turning down evening drinking sessions to come home earlier. He'd make me breakfast, accompany me shopping, and moved from the adjoining room to sleep beside me in the master bedroom. I'm dull and indifferent if not for family circumstances. Why would you have married me? I never imagined such words could come from Julian's mouth. With self-doubt, suspicion, and sensitivity, I'm quite surprised you think that way. Back then you were the one who absolutely refused to get married. And what else more wasn't he at you who first suggested sleeping in separate rooms? The thought of this still irritates me. At the time, I did have just a tiny bit of desire for his body, thinking that on the day we got our marriage certificate, it would naturally be the start of something good. But that very day, he claimed he wasn't feeling well and moved into the guest bedroom. For several days after that, he either slept at the office or still lay in the guest bedroom. I racked my brains trying to gradually get him to sleep in the master bedroom. At first it was just sleeping, then we did something more, and then he was probably worried about disappointing you. After all, before meeting you, marriage was never really on his mind. 16 I rested my chin on my hand and looked at him. Say more, I love hearing it. Julian paused. Didn't I tell you before? The 29-year-old Julian would never say such sweet nothings to me. He only knew how to whisper dirty talk in bed. So you kept saying I didn't like you, and actually it's you who didn't like me. Julian furrowed his handsome brows. No, you're lying to me. You always subconsciously shift your gaze when you're lying. Do you have to observe so closely? Fine, I might say it, but it's not quite the same nature. Just thinking about those words made my cheeks flush, but Julian didn't seem willing to drop the subject. He unbuttoned the top button of his collar and removed his wristwatch. He asked with keen interest, for example, oh, what is there to give examples for? You'll know when you remember. Julian stared straight at me, his tone teasing, but I want to hear you say it. This is the office right now. I quickly refused. It's not appropriate to talk about this now. Then let us talk about it in bed, okay? I strongly suspect Julian has remembered something. One sentence for me wasn't enough. He kept pressing for more. What else I said? There was nothing more. Then he'd grip my waist and do it all over again. Is that all? There's more. Julian kept me in a daze while coaxing me to utter those shameful words one by one. Once wasn't enough again. By the time I woke up the next day, Julian's hand was lazily stroking my waist. It tickled a little. This was his favorite thing to do at 29. I froze slightly, turning to look at him. His gaze didn't resemble that of a 19-year-old boy. More like a smug wolf who'd gotten his way. I was stunned. Darling, I never knew these words could sound so adorable coming from your mouth. Did you remember everything? Julian nodded, ruffling my messy hair. If I don't remember soon, who knows how much leverage my sweetheart will have over me. Even after regaining his memory at 18, Julian still acted the same as when he had amnesia, driving me to and from work, messaging me constantly. Sweetheart, just letting you know the team's going out for dinner today. Sweetheart, I heard some coworkers saying I'm henpecked behind my back. They just don't understand. Being henpecked is the happiest thing. I suddenly thought of something and quickly pulled up a video from my phone. It was Julian after losing his memory saying to Chris and the others, only a fool would get married like this. Without hesitation, I sent the video over. Julian fell silent. Guard against fire, theft, and so-called friends. Not a single one of them reminded me when I lost my memory. I sent an speechless meme over at 9 p.m. Sophia, and I returned home from shopping. I glanced at the messages. The last one was from Julian at 7 p.m. letting me know he was having dinner with Chris and the others. No messages for 2 hours. I typed out a perfectly normal text and sent it. Are you home yet? The next second, Leo called. Sis-in-law, you need to come see Julian. Right now we can't hold him back. He crying like a boiling kettle, and he nearly 19 meters tall. 19 I rushed to the place where they were gathering. Julian was leaning against the table with furrowed brows, his eyes and lips both flushed red. Julian, I called out to him. Julian frowned slightly, his long lashes fluttering faintly. How did he drink so much? Wasn't he fine earlier in the day? Not long after we got married, he had mostly stopped drinking. Even during business meetings, he would only drink in moderation. We couldn't stop him. He wouldn't say what was wrong, just kept drinking himself into a stupor. Sis, let's help you take Julian home first. Julian was much heavier than I'd imagined. By the time we managed to haul him home with great difficulty, he'd sobered up slightly. No need to trouble yourself, wifey, I can wash up by myself. He staggered into the bathroom, splashing water all over himself. It soaked all his clothes. I wanted to help him. He pushed me away again. If this continues, he'll catch a cold. Julian, what on earth has gotten into you? He suddenly hugged me tightly, crying loudly. You're being mean to me, Julian. I really can't drink anymore. You want a divorce the moment I lose my memory. Since I don't remember you, you can't be bothered with me either. If I hadn't clung to you desperately, I'd be the unwanted one now. I've tried so hard. I changed everything you didn't like. Why can't you just learn to like me a little? I finally understood. So you got this drunk because you thought I didn't like you. Julian, be reasonable. Why would I marry you if I didn't like you? Because I'm decent looking, have a decent body, and am pretty good in bed. I immediately covered his mouth enough. If he kept talking, he'd spill all our secrets. Julian, I like you not just because you're handsome with a great body, and in bed you're a hem. I like you for who you are, all of you, whether you've lost your memory or not. I still like you. I've never thought about giving up on you or divorcing you. Julian stared at me blankly. Really? I cupped his face and planted a kiss on his lips and chin. The next second, Julian's large hand cradled the back of my head as he kissed me without warning. My back pressed tightly against the cold tile. Standing too close, I could feel something unusual about Julian's body. I pushed against his abdomen. You lied to me. No, baby. Julian didn't stop his movements. I'm drunk, but not that drunk, still capable. As for how the night ended, I suddenly found myself missing the Julian whose memories stopped at age 19. What would it be like if we had really met when we were 19? Haven't you seen it with your own eyes? At 19, I'd probably still be completely at your mercy. But I'd do it willingly. The end.